Welcome to the Voice of MPE, the official podcast of Merchant Payments Ecosystem, Europe's largest merchant payments conference. This podcast brings you interviews with payment industry leaders and professionals from the entire payment world. For more information, head over to www.merchantpaymentsecosystem.com. In today's episode, Claire Maslen, moderator of this session, spoke with Birgit Kaiser from UNSER and Melanie Ockerse from Intersect as they discussed the significance of diversity and inclusion, not only in the payments industry, but in businesses in general.
We are here at MPE, and this morning we started discussing diversity and inclusion. And so this afternoon we're having a podcast with a fantastic group of ladies who contributed to the discussion this morning, but also more broadly with the European Women in Payments Network. So first of all, introductions. My name is Claire Maslen, and I'm an independent consultant working in payments. And I've been around for a long, long time, not necessarily in payments, but in technology. And so I've seen lots of attempts at making sure that all of our environments are diverse and inclusive. And so I am joined this afternoon by Birgit, Andrea, and Melanie. And so perhaps you could start with just giving a quick 10 seconds introduction. Melanie.
Thanks for having us, to MPE and to Claire for hosting that podcast. I'm Melanie. I'm wearing two hats in my day-to-day life. I am managing all of our channel partnerships and strategic technology partnerships for Intersect, the company I work for. And then my other hat that I'm also wearing almost every day is I'm a board member of EWPN, which is the European Women Payment Network, a non-for-profit organization that's working towards creating more diversity and inclusion in our industry and focus on gender, but also trying to open up the diversity conversation in a broader sense.
Good afternoon. Thank you for the invitation. My name is Andrea Toucinho. I am Director of Studies, Prospective and Training of a French consulting company called Partelia Consulting, specialized in payments. I am also country ambassador for France of EWPN and France representative of two national fintech associations, AFI Spain and AFI Portugal.
Hi, my name is Birgit. I'm Managing Director in UNSER, a payment service provider with focus on Germany, Austria, and Denmark. And I'm very happy to be here and see that this topic is also valued by the MPE.
Yeah, you're right. I think it is a topic that is valued by MPE, and certainly the conversation that we had this morning, after we all left the room, people were still talking about it. And I think that the team at MPE, every year they try and bring fresh things to the agenda. And this is an age-old problem, but it is fresh to this environment. So well done to MPE for bringing this up the agenda for us. So let's start with where we started in the room this morning, asking about International Women's Day. And there has been a narrative and a bit of a storm brewing the last couple of years. I think we're seeing a lot of people perhaps pushing back and perhaps not using the day as a platform to discuss things because we're fed up with the pink cupcakes. So does anyone have an input or a consideration to discuss on that?
Yes. So I unfortunately, I must say, I consider this day as very important still. I hope in a few years from now, we don't need this kind of days. As of now, it's a matter of fact that this should serve as a reminder to society of discrimination. And I would also like to use that not only to look at the gender discrimination, but also to inclusion and discrimination on other means, like talking about sexual orientation, religion, races.
For me, I thought long and hard about what to post this year on the International Women's Day, because having fought that fight for such a long time, you're like, we're still not there. And what I found very interesting is, and I said it also this morning, that International Women's Day was initiated by the United Nations. But it's also now for a lot of companies a marketing tool and just like trying to tick the box. So there are other big organizations that rank high in Google if you Google International Women's Day. And this year, what you saw a lot was a hashtag called Inspire Inclusion. And it's a nice thing. There's nothing wrong with it. But in fact, the official United Nations hashtag was Invest in Women. And that is something that is more tangible, more actionable. You can also measure it. And I think this is where we as an industry, individual organizations, but also as an organization like EWPN, be a bit more mindful in how do we invest? And then what's the return in investment? And almost going back to creating that business case for more diversity, because there are studies that say if your company is diverse, if your workforce is diverse in whatever aspect, it doesn't only have to be gender, it actually needs to be beyond, you're more innovative, you're being more profitable, and all of that good stuff. So that's one of my takeaways, that we need to look at the stats a bit more and try to drive the conversation that way.
Andrea?
Yes, International Women's Day is a very important day. It's a symbol. I think it is important to consider this symbol as an important one, not just for the actual generations, but also for the next ones, and for women who cannot speak, because even inside Europe, we see a lack of maturity about gender equity in diverse countries, like in the south of Europe. So it is important to respect this symbol. But I agree with my colleagues with the fact that it is important today to consider diversity not just as a gender equity problem, but also as diversity in the field of geography, in the field of profiles. It is important to consider diversity as a whole.
Absolutely. And I think, we're very conscious. So yes, I think we're very conscious that in fact, diversity this is not just a gender discussion. It just so happens that we are so close to International Women's Day that I think that has been part of the driver for this particular discussion. So if we think about more kind of tangible things rather than just, slogans and hashtags, during your careers, in your experience, have there been things that you think that has made a difference, or that will really make a difference if we get on board with it? I've certainly got some ideas, but I wonder if anyone else here has.
Yes, I think for me as a mother of three and making career, one of the most important topics for me was, first of all, having managers that were supportive, that were role models partially, and also working in an environment that was supporting the balance between family and career by flexible working times, by teleworking possibilities, by creating an environment that was accepting actually the fact that I can be a manager, but I can also have kids and be a mother, right, in parallel. So I think that was one of the key factors for me that led me to my current position, and which I also foster for my team. Mm-hmm.
I think that the development of women in management is a very important thing. The second thing, I think, is the development of role models and the creation of networks between women within the industry. I have several examples to share with you. For instance, in France, we have, in addition to the actions of WPN, 2 new associations linked with women in payments, Les Femmes du Paiement, dedicated to retail, and another one linked with an association created by a man who wants to promote women also. In Portugal, we have also many actions in the field of communication to promote the role of women in some companies like the National Actors SIPS. The CEO of this company is a woman, and she's very famous in the country. And in Spain, we have a very proactive action of the Spanish FinTech Association that wants to promote the role of women in the development of tech. So I think that this network is important to create a real positive trend in the field of gender equity and more generally in the field of diversity.
So if I go back to probably 2005, so nearly 20 years ago, I worked at O2 Telefonica, and I was one of the founders of the Women in Tech network there. And our approach, there was myself and two other ladies who I'm still in touch with now, who are still great sponsors. But our approach was actually to seek male sponsorship within the business, because the board at that time, there were women on the board, but it was predominantly male. And one of the best pieces of advice that I was given around flexible working, Birgit, you mentioned flexible working, was actually don't be too flexible. So if you have a working pattern that says that you need to leave at 3:00 or 4:00 because of childcare, do it.
Yep.
Don't then think, actually, I'm going to stay for another half hour, because you put yourself under undue pressure to then you're getting in the car and you're driving like a lunatic and you're stressed when you get to the point of picking up a child or visiting a nursing home if you've got elderly parents, things like that. So that for me was one piece of really tangible action.
And I would like to add something to that, because I just had a conversation earlier on exactly that. As in the morning discussion, it also came up by what can leaders do, and it's leading by example. But what does that necessarily mean, right? And I always like to have then tangible examples of, this is what I do, this is what someone else do. And I heard about a company where everyone has shared their calendar. So you don't only see, okay, this person is blocked, but you also see why. And then she said, it's actually one of our fellow EWPN colleagues. She said, I can see from our CEO in the afternoon, every afternoon, 6:30 or 5:30 until 7:30, don't interrupt me. I'm feeding and bathing little humans. And that's what he blocked in his calendar. And for me, this is a true example of leading by example and being very transparent of what you're doing, not just block out your time and hopefully no one knows what you're up to. And because if someone very senior and a male colleague does that, that just gives you permission, and you don't, it takes away the stress of, I have to do that. And trying to kind of find excuses or something like that, because it normalizes it. And I think this is a very nice example of leading by example.
Yeah, I'm fully with you. I think the fact that you feel accepted in that role makes a big difference, right? Because then you're feeling more comfortable in your work, and also when you are off work with your kids.
Yeah, and I think, obviously we've honed in there on a particular, that's a parenting issue, but it could equally be a study issue. Someone is going off to do extracurricular or vocational study. Be open and transparent. If you have that agreement in place or that framework that allows you to be flexible, use it, but be clear about what you're doing so that other people around you can see that that's the norm. Yeah.
And I also would like to add that I feel it's very important that it's not only coming from women, but also especially from males as well. After our breakfast discussion, I had few follow-ups with male participants actually. And they were also telling me about how important they see these topics, also them being father of boys and girls. And by that, already sort of thinking about his own education, which was very role dominated, right? And then also changing this for his kids already at an early stage to, make a change later on.
I'm always intrigued, amused, bemused, possibly, when I travel and people say, oh, who's having your children?
No man is going to be asked.
It's seriously, because my husband travels and people don't ask him. There is just an assumption that there's someone at home sorting it out. And of course, there is. But I think that it's even commentary and narrative like that perhaps we need to call out when we see things like that. Yeah. Okay. Well, I've enjoyed the conversation. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to the official MPE podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe to the show and check other video interviews with other industry leaders on our YouTube channel. For more content, follow Merchant Payments Ecosystem on LinkedIn and Twitter. Don't miss out on our Positivity magazine and remember to subscribe to the MPE newsletter at www.merchantpaymentsecosystem.com.